only had the percentages there and the sample, but I think it is better when we have that sample translated to what are the number of votes per region, isn't it? Because you yourselves don't have the luxury of time. But without much ado, I think what we're here to share with you is basically the presidential popularity, Nyongesa, welcome, presidential popularity question, because that is the only question we covered. For once, we did not bother with key issues, because they have not changed since we started doing this at the beginning of the year. It is high cost of living, it is infrastructure, it is access to clean water, it is, good education, etc., etc. So we didn't do that. But if you want it, then we can still share it with you from the last 3 weeks, the poll that we did last 3 weeks ago. We've seen that nothing, generally changes, okay? John, I don't know how to flip I'm using his computer, okay? But I am required by law and by our protocols to basically share with you the methodology. And our methodology has not changed. It was done 6,000 sample, covering all the, 9 regions that we now cover, sub-regions as we call them, and all the 47 counties. It also covered all the 290 constituencies within those counties. So we wanted it to give all the broad, political, groups or definitions that we have, or regions, an equal opportunity of being covered in the survey. So we didn't discriminate on any county, we didn't discriminate on any constituency, all were covered. The random sampling was then done therein within the wards themselves, because in some cases the samples were rather small. But in essence, who is covered in this survey is adult voters, the registered voters, right now 22 odd million registered voters. And in essence, the only way we could pull this off is by doing computer-assisted telephone interviews, right? So some of you have seen our call center. So the kids in the call center have been working round the clock, just, talking to people and finding out what their intentions are. And as you know, the law requires that we release the last polls 5 days to an election. So the last day to actually publish a poll, because the law is publication of electoral opinion polls, is actually tomorrow, okay? So we can still talk to you and release something if we want to do tomorrow, but publication of that particular poll can only be done as a deadline for tomorrow. After that, the law, stifles everyone from releasing any electoral, poll or related poll. Okay, as you can see, the margin of error for the 6,000 is plus or minus 1.4 at 95% degree of confidence. That generally means that 95 out of 100 times, if we were to ask the same question we asked this morning and yesterday, we would get the same answer. 5% of the time, things may be different. For social surveys, that gives us a lot of comfort, especially because of the way we have stratified our sample to ensure that it is as representative as possible of the entire population, which in this case is the voter population, okay? It's still 1 week, so we need to do this disclaimer, which we do with you all the time, that until it is almost the last hour, you know that 48 hours, 24 hours in Kenyan politics or politics anywhere is a long time, okay? So there is that, possibility that things could change before Tuesday. So we need to make that disclaimer. This is not actually a predictive poll. It is the final poll that we are allowed to do. We will do our predictive poll on the day before. So on the 8th is when any reasonable scientist will then do their poll, but it is not a poll that you can actually, publish, but you can use it to do your predictions, okay? So if you're a good friend, we may whisper to you, okay? So if we look at the presidential popularity, and that is the only question we asked, assuming the general elections were held today, who would you vote for as president? Then we see that if elections were held today, Raila would garner 49% of the vote, William Ruto would garner 42%, George Wajakoya would garner 2%, David Wahiga would have 0.3%, and the undecided currently is at 6%. Okay, so there's 6% of Kenyans who are not yet decided, and we'll see how that pans out. If you allow me, because I know in interest of time people need to run off, let me start off by just, very quickly looking at the panoramic view by these 9 regions, and then focusing on each region individually, where we'll be able to see the counties, okay? So if you look at Raila, then you see that he has majority of the votes in Coast at 58%. At the Coast, William Ruto has 29%, and Wajakoya currently has 4%. Undecided is still at 8%, which could tilt either way. But as we know, the Coast has hitherto been a stronghold for the former Prime Minister. But, we will wait and see how things go in this last couple of days when they're doing their, final rallies and wooing of voters. In northern Kenya, we also see that he has 55%, that is Raila. Ruto has 35%, and then there's 9% undecided. Wajakoya has 1%. If we look at Lower Eastern, then we see that in Lower Eastern, he has majority. Certainly, we cannot fault Kalonzo, Charity, and the team down there for delivering Lower Eastern. You can see that 71% of the vote in Lower Eastern, as we speak, would be going to Raila Odinga. And then 19% would today go to Ruto, and 8% are currently undecided. In Mount Kenya, where a lot of activity has taken place as late as yesterday and today, both candidates have been trying to woo that vote-rich region. We see that Raila only has about a quarter of the votes at 24%. This is an indisputable Ruto stronghold with 66% of the vote currently. The undecided now in the Mount Kenya region is also only at 8%. So it's not as high as it's hitherto been. And I guess, that 8%, because it's so vote-rich a region, will also, is likely to tilt the votes to one person's favor over the other. Let's look at South Rift. South Rift has traditionally been one of those places where Raila Odinga has had a hold. That is, if you look at Narok, Kajiado, and Samburu. And what we now see is that South Rift is more inclined to William Ruto with 62%. So it is a William Ruto stronghold as we speak. And Raila only has 31% in South Rift. The undecided there is quite low at 2%. And we see that David Wahiga has 1% and George Wajakoya has 4%. If we look at North Rift, that is another, undisputed William Ruto stronghold. 64% of the vote is for William Ruto. Raila garners 30% in the North Rift, and then we have undecided at 4%, and you can see the lower numbers for Wajakoya and David Wahiga. Nyanza, definitely a Raila stronghold. We see him with 79%, 14% going to William Ruto, 3% is allocated to George Wajakoya, and then we have 4% only who are undecided as we speak, 6 days to the elections. Western has also been a Raila stronghold. It was, iffy most of the times when we shared the polls with you, but we can now see that it's standing at 61%. 8% is undecided, and about 30%, 29%, say that they will vote for William Ruto. And then this capital city and county, Nairobi, has, for the last couple of months, oscillated towards Raila Odinga. So we see that he's still maintaining that, strength and as a stronghold, with 53% of the vote and 37% of the vote currently going to William Ruto. The undecided is currently at 6%. Okay, and that is how then we get the 49 for Raila, 42 for William Ruto, and then 2% for George Wajakoya. But significantly also for us to look at there is the undecided, which could either mean that Raila has a very decisive win if all the undecided or most of the undecided decide to vote for him, or it would actually also mean that if Ruto was to take all the undecided, then it would be a dead heat at 48-49, okay? Because there's 6% undecided. Realistically, I don't think all the undecided will go to one basket. We will have them splitting, and that is really what they're trying to do now. Secure the votes that they already have, but also woo that last-minute person who hasn't actually made up their mind on who exactly, or feels they need a bit more nudging to make a decision. Let's look at Coast very quickly, because I know you need to run. Look at Mombasa. 55% of the vote in Mombasa is going to go to Raila currently, 31% to William Ruto. I think in the last election, if I'm not wrong, it was more around the 68% range for Raila in Mombasa. So something seems to have been lost. And let's wait and see how things go. They have their final rally there, I don't know, next couple of days. I think Ruto has already gone there as his last route for this particular election. So let's see whether that would change some of the numbers a little bit and oscillate towards one side or the other. Kwale had been seen at somewhat, it started off as a battleground. It was oscillating more towards UDA, especially because one of the major kingpins there, the current governor, Salim Vuria, is a UDA luminary. But what we're seeing right now is a third of the vote is with UDA, which is significant, but majority of that vote is still with ODM at 55%. If we look at Kilifi, that is definitely Raila Odinga territory at 69%. Ruto only has 19%, so the luminaries there perhaps need to have done a bit more. We have called Tana River as a battleground county. It remains so, if you see here, 44 for Raila, 43 for William Ruto, and therefore anybody who can get the 10% that is undecided can then take the day in this not very vote-rich county, but significant enough to tilt Coast. And then if we look at Lamu, then we also see again battleground. Yeah, it has been a Jubilee stronghold. But we now see that, Raila has 45% of the vote there. William Ruto is very close with 42%, and we see an undecided of 9%. And then Taita Taveta is indisputed as a Raila stronghold at 58%. We have William Ruto at 32%, and then we have the undecided at 6%. So that's generally how the Coast pans out. And so, in a nutshell, as you had seen before, the Coast oscillates more to, and pans out as a Raila Odinga stronghold. Quickly, if we look at northern Kenya, then these are the counties we have in northern Kenya. We have Garissa, we have Wajir, we have Mandera, Marsabit, Turkana, and Isiolo. And what you see here is that Garissa is certainly a Raila Odinga stronghold with almost 70% of the vote, 21% going to William Ruto. If we look at Wajir, half of the vote at 50% is with Raila, 45% is with Ruto, and then we have 6% who are currently undecided. If we look at Mandera, again, majority at 51% are supporting Raila, and 38% are with Ruto. If we look at Marsabit, the last time we did the poll and shared it with you, Marsabit was oscillating towards UDA, And now we see that it's gone back, and we have 50% for Raila Odinga and 41% for William Ruto. Indeed, we will give you some the back data so you can look at the trends. And then we see Turkana as well. That has remained quite constant, Raila Odinga stronghold with 57%. And then you see William Ruto with 29% in Turkana. In Isiolo, it still remains, as we saw in our last poll, which we released about 3 weeks ago, where Isiolo now is more a William Ruto stronghold at 50%, and Raila has 42%, undecided is 8%. Okay? But in a nutshell, we saw that northern Kenya was oscillating again towards Raila Odinga. Lower Eastern, we had said 71% in total is for Raila Odinga. How does it pan out by county? We see that Kitui, 68% of those in Kitui say they will vote for Raila. 22% will vote for Ruto. In Machakos, 72% will vote for Raila, 16% will vote for Ruto. And then in Makueni, 74% will vote for Raila and 21% will vote for Ruto. And we see that the undecided in those counties is at an average of 7%. The mountain, everybody's been going there. It is vote rich, so it is, not shocking that there's a lot of attention in the mountain. And if we look at the counties in the mountain, then let us start off by agreeing that this is an undisputed Ruto stronghold. Whether you look at Meru, where he has 61%, or you look at Tharaka Nithi, where he has his highest percentage, which is 81%. But what is it vis-a-vis Raila? So we see that Raila seems to get his highest support in the mountain if you look at individual counties in Meru, where he has 32% of the vote, while Ruto has 61%. We see that Raila only has 13% in Tharaka Nithi, and Ruto has, an overwhelming majority, which is 81%. Same thing with Embu. Ruto has 76% of the vote and of voters supporting him, and 20% go to Raila Odinga. Nyandarua, more or less the same thing. The only difference with Nyandarua is Ruto has 64% popularity. Raila only has 19%, and then there is a large undecided, as you can see there, of 18%. So there's 18% in Nyandarua who are not sure yet. Let's look at Nyeri. 67% will vote for Ruto if elections were held today. And we see that 23% will vote for Raila. 7% are currently undecided. Kirinyaga, 73%, where the Raila's running mate comes from, 73% will actually vote for Ruto, and only 22% will vote for Raila. 3% are undecided. So it seems like this particular county is already made up its mind on how it's going to, go about its voting. If we look at Murang'a, then 66% are saying they'll vote for William Ruto, 20% say they will vote for Raila, and 12% in Murang'a are still, undecided. A very vote-rich county, might I add. And then we also see another vote-rich county, Kiambu, where 60% say they will vote for Ruto, 27% would vote for Raila, and then we see 9% are undecided. Laikipia, where I think at some point the head of the presidential campaign was coming from, Deritu, is currently at 65% for Raila, and we have 27% who say they would vote for, is for Ruto, 27% would vote for Raila, and 7% are currently undecided. South Rift, Narok. Let me start off, there are not many counties. Narok, 50% would vote for Raila, 40% will vote for William Ruto as we speak, and 3% are undecided. Kajiado, which has been tilting either way, is currently more with William Ruto at 48%. 44% say they would vote for Raila, and 2% are undecided. The difference is such that one could even call that one of the battlegrounds right now. But if we look at Kericho and Bomet, those two counties have made up their minds. So you have Kericho County, majority at 79% would vote for William Ruto, and same thing with Bomet, where 82% would vote for William Ruto. Okay? What about North Rift? In the North Rift, we have West Pokot, we have Samburu. I had erroneously before said Samburu was in South Rift, but they are actually North Rift. Then we have Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Baringo, and Nakuru. And what you see is interesting dynamics. Look at West Pokot. And we have called it as a battleground. You see Raila with 44% currently, William Ruto with 52% is leading, and 3% are undecided, almost suggesting that decisions have been made in the minds of the voter. Let us look at Samburu. We have called this as a battleground from the get-go, and you can see it's 46 for Raila, 47 for Ruto, 5% undecided. What about Uasin Gishu? We see that 35% of this cosmopolitan county say they would vote for Raila. 60% of the, this county, which is the home of William Ruto, would vote for Ruto, and 3% are actually undecided. Elgeyo Marakwet is undisputed Ruto territory. Nandi at 78% is also Ruto's territory. Baringo, 77% is Ruto's territory. Nakuru, again, is interesting dynamics, but as we see it in this closing week, I'm not sure if and maybe the analysts will give their voice to this, but I'm not sure things will change much, and we can now call it as a Ruto, William Ruto stronghold with 57%, with only 4% who are undecided. Nyanza, this is Raila's stronghold. He leads in all the counties of Nyanza, 86 in Siaya, 10% going to Ruto. Kisumu, he has 87% support, 6% going to William Ruto. Homa Bay, he has 85% support, 5% going to William Ruto. Migori, which is cosmopolitan because you have both Luos and you have Kurias, has 20% going to William Ruto, and we have 79% support for Raila. And then Kisii, we have 66% support for Raila, and 24% support for William Ruto. Not very different from Nyamira, the sister or neighboring county to Kisii, where you have 68% for Raila and 26% for William Ruto. The undecided, as you can see in this, melting pot of the former prime minister, is very low. So 3% undecided in Siaya, 2% undecided in Kisumu, but we see that Homa Bay has 7% undecided, Migori is only 1%, Kisii and Nyamira have 5% and 7% respectively. Another battleground region, because it has been oscillating, it is a place where both candidates have spent a lot of time, and that's Western region. And what we see in Western, here we have 5 counties, Trans Nzoia, Kakamega, Vihiga, Bungoma, and Busia. What is happening in Trans Nzoia? We now see that 52% of those in Trans Nzoia say they will vote for William Ruto. For Raila Odinga. The last time we did this survey, it was the flip. We had majority saying that they would vote for William Ruto. So that seems to have changed, perhaps with activities in the recent past. The undecided is still significant at 14%. And then we see Kakamega. This has been one of Raila's strongest holds in Western Kenya. And what we see is that he has 63% of this vote-rich county. 28% goes to William Ruto, and 5% is currently undecided. Vihiga is the home of Musalia Mudavadi, where 60% of the voters there say they will vote for Raila Odinga. Only 27% say they will vote for William Ruto, and 12% are currently undecided. Bungoma has historically been a red herring. And so we see, and perhaps can still be called as a battleground, Raila is currently leading slightly with 46% in Bungoma, but we see that William Ruto got significant support at 43% in Bungoma, and the undecided is currently at 8%. Busia is another undisputed, Raila stronghold with 88% for him and 7% for William Ruto, and the undecided is just at 6%. Then finally, we close with Nairobi, where we have, Raila at 53, William Ruto at 37, George Wajakoya at 3%, David Mwaura at 1%, and we have an undecided of 6%. So even if all the undecided go to William Ruto, majority would still be voting, I believe, for Raila Odinga. That brings us, I think, to an end of the regional analysis. If we look at the information by gender and age, what do we see? And how do you actually look at this slide? You look at this slide, I think, running downwards, John. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what we see is that if we look at all the female voters, right? All the female voters, slightly more female voters are inclined to Raila at 46 against Ruto's 43. But we also see that more male voters are inclined to Raila. In fact, almost 10% more male voters are inclined to Raila as opposed to Ruto at 41%. So there are distinct differences, but in essence, what we see is that majority of the males and majority of the females, if we just looked at them as individual pots, are supporting Raila more than they're supporting Ruto. If we look at the age groups, let us look at the younger age group and who they're actually oscillating towards. It would surprise you to see that 18 to 26 between Ruto and Raila, not very different. So Raila has 44% of the hold on the younger voter, 18 to 26, and William Ruto has 42%. If we look at the slightly older but youthful voter, 27 to 35 years, then almost 50% of them support Raila and 44% support William Ruto. And then when we look at the older voters, 36 to 45, we see that at 36 to 45 age group, 50% support Raila, 43% support Ruto. 46 to 55, we see 51% supporting Raila, 39% supporting Ruto. And over 55 years of age, which I don't think any of you here are, 55% support Raila and 35% support Ruto. Right, guys, that brings me to the end of the very brief presentation, and that is the overall statistic, which is 49, 42, and 6% undecided. The other two candidates, 2% for George Wajakoya and David Mwaura at 0.3. It doesn't take anybody who doesn't understand math or statistics to call it as a two-horse race. That's what it is. Okay? I'm happy to answer your questions. And I think because you may want to get some insights from the analysts, we'll ask them to each just come and give their comments. Is that okay for that? Because I know you can go and burn your stories. Asante sana. Okay. So I think we can start off with Prof. Can you start off by giving your insights, perhaps, on, and I think this will not work because I believe they want the mics active. Yeah. Prof was my American history professor when I was in University of Nairobi. So with all much respect, Professor.
Thank you very much. It is good to see students doing well. And the presentation is very good, but it points out some things. There is a trend going on. There is a time when Raila was seen to be very behind. Something has happened since then, because the projection is that he's doing well. And the other thing is that William Ruto is supposed to be doing very well in the Rift. In terms of comparison percentages, he has not done very well according to this, because his support in the Rift is about, what, 60-something? In Nyanza, Raila support is, what, 80-something?
Yes.
So there's something there that may need attention. Why is Ruto not seemingly having as high a percentage support as he theoretically should? In the mountain region, It's clear that Ruto is doing very well. But there was a time when the percentage appeared to be in the 80s. Yeah. It's now gone down to the 60s. So something has happened in between. So the question is, what is it that Raila is doing right to increase his percentages? And what is it that Ruto is doing wrong to decrease his percentages in some key areas? So if the pattern continues, then Raila might win, if the pattern continues. At present, despite the discrepancy of about 6 or 7 points, 47 and 42, it's close to call. And it can go either way. And given the margin of error, say 1 to 2, yeah?
It's 1.
Just 1.
Yeah.
You never know. 1 week is very long. But at present, if there are 3 polls that were released today or within the last 2 days, it's one saying 49% to 41. The other one saying 47 to 41. 49, 42. So that trend, they are all showing Raila ahead, the 3 of them. Although it said that do not always believe the polls, but do not ignore them. Never ignore the polls, because there is an element of truth. There may be some problem somewhere. Of course, critics like point sometimes when the pollsters were very definite about something, and then it turns out they are the opposite, the other side. Then what happened? They then go back to the drawing board to find out what it is that happened. Why did they get it wrong? But with the 3 of them, assuming they are all well done, then the trajectory at present is that Raila might win. And so the Ruto people have a lot of work to do to reverse that in less than a week, to change that perception. And so the projections, actually one of the surprising parts a little bit was that the percentages in Nyanza are very high, comparing to other places. There was a time when it looked as if some people were making inroads. Yes. Yeah. So and maybe Ruto was appearing to be doing well. Not very well, but better than these things show. So it's these statistics. One thing is that they do not give their own numbers. Okay? We have how many voters in the mountain region? And those percentages translate to how many actual votes. And then when you go to the coast, you do the same. And then you add them up. So there might be some questions about matching percentages with the actual vote. But these are things to consider for both sides. I think this is good food for the campaigners in the Raila camp or in the Ruto camp. You've got some ammunition, something to work with. You've got only 1 week or less to up your game. But the way things are, the projection is that Raila has a slight edge in the 1 week. Whether it will change or not is another matter. We don't know. But there is a possibility. So my analysis is that it is very close. And it can go either way, although the projection shows 1 way. So people should be ready for any of them. Yes, be ready for any of them, although right now it looks as if it's going that way. Thank you.
I think if you also introduce yourself.
Okay.
You've not taught me, so.
I will, before I go and meet my creator. Let me also, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philip Kisia. I'm a specialist in governance, leadership, and management. Let me also confess that Prof is my teacher. He taught me many things that I not have time to share with you today. But having been my professor, allow me to differ with him slightly. And Prof, forgive me, because figures don't lie. The opinion polls that have been released in the last 48 hours are very clear. They're all giving indications to the direction the country is moving. And if we all believe that figures don't lie, and that is what Professor taught me, that figures can never lie, then of course it is no longer a two-horse race. Raila Odinga has a clear lead. And let me probably, before commenting on the presentation, let me say this, that these elections, more than any other elections held in the Republic of Kenya, will be premised on a few things. Let me mention one or two. Number one, the issue of integrity. I think it's top on the list this time round. Number two, who can you trust? Number three, who gives you hope? Because right now we are at the lowest that we've ever been. The other thing is, of course, there's a lot of tension. Who can piece this country together after the general elections? Who can put us together? And finally, the list is long, but finally, who can assure us continuity? Because Vision 2030 was created by Kenyans, not by Mwai Kibaki, my friend, my president. He took us through 10 years. Uhuru has built on the vision for 10 years. The vision has 8 years to expire. So who can we trust to carry on with the vision? I think that's a question that Kenyans are asking. Who can we entrust? Because we cannot waste 23 years. We do not want somebody who will come with what I call the zero approach to management. That you want to start from zero. That you believe that those who are there did nothing, so you want to start from where? From zero. So you have two candidates. One is saying, let me start from zero. The other one is saying, let me build on the blocks. You have 8 years before Vision 2030 expires. Who can you trust? Now, these, in my view, are some of the factors that are probably putting Raila ahead of his main challenger. And I must say it's formidable. It's a formidable challenger. You cannot take it for granted. From the 10 regions we've seen, Raila is holding 6. He has 6 firmly under his control. And William Samoei Ruto has 4. So as to whether you can shift that in another 5 days, I think you need a miracle. And miracles do happen. Miracles have happened in the past. They may happen again. But I think that's not something that is very easy. Then you must also remember that as human beings, we always want to be on the winning side. No human being would want to be a loser. So even the undecided voters, who are about 6%, the chances that they will vote for the person who is currently perceived to be the winner are at a rate of 20%. So out of the 6% that we have who are undecided, most likely 5% will go to their side. Then I think there are assumptions that could have been wrong that were made by the competitor, or rather decisions, in my view, which were wrong. Number one, I think the issue of a running mate could have played a critical role, could have, contributed to the shift that you are seeing. The shift you are seeing. When you have a super number 2 and who is of the opposite gender, the possibilities are, if your competitor chooses a weaker number 2 who is not super, that can have a negative effect on your end result. The other thing is there was an assumption that the youth would vote automatically with somebody who is a bit youthful. That again you can see is not happening. I think the youth are looking more, not at the age, but they are looking at who can present hope. Where is hope? And I think they are seeing hope with Raila Amolo Odinga. The other thing that I picked, and which probably was a wrong assumption that cannot be corrected now, is the issue of one candidate, and probably because of political experience. And I was taught in Harvard that experience cannot be taught. You must acquire from good people, like I've acquired my experience from Professor Munene, and of course the world in general. That you cannot be given. So probably because of the political experience that Raila has, he decided to use regional kingpins. Okay? He picked people who are known, even in Central Province, Western Province, and of late, he picked and ensured that he didn't lose somebody who's formidable in the name of Kalonzo Musyoka. So you can see the figures presented today, I think, if I'm not wrong, they're closing to 70%. In Kalonzo's strong areas. So that issue, the competitor decided to be the king unto himself. Okay? Of course, he brought in other smaller kings much later, but I think it was late. Raila, from the word go, he decided, I'll work with the regional kingpins. And it has worked for him. Then finally, as told by Professor Munene, finally, Central Province, where Raila had almost nothing, I think he has put a focus. He's now at 25%. And if there's something that Central Province appreciates, they appreciate two things. And Professor Munene will tell you that. Number one, they appreciate power and they love power. Number two, they know the value of money and resources. So even the undecided in that area are likely to shift to none other than, in my view, Raila Amolo Odinga. Thank you very much.
I hope Mamboleo, I hope you're going to give us an alternative opinion.
I hope so. Even
From Prof now, this one is Damu, so this one I'm hoping.
Yes, my name is James Mamboleo. I'm a constitutional lawyer, and I'm going to try to look at these figures from a constitutional standpoint. The Constitution requires that for you to be elected as president, you must garner at least 50% plus one vote. Okay, 50% plus one vote, whatever the figures are. So let's say, for instance, if the election were to be attended to by about 17 million voters, you just need 50% of those votes plus one vote, you will have won. So what are these figures saying? Raila Amolo Odinga at 49% and William Ruto at 42%. It means that if elections were held today, none of them would have crossed the 50% plus one mark, which is required for them to become president. So how is this significant? We are seeing that we have about 1 week to the election, and the trend has been that Raila Amolo Odinga has been rising from behind William Ruto in a couple of months back. And if this trend continues, we hope that the 1% is going to be attained in this coming week. Now, what is also significant about these figures is that the number of undecided voters has been going down. About 3-4 months ago, the number of undecided voters was about 20%. It is now at 6%. And so, in my view, the question we should ask is who's been benefiting from this undecided or this shrinking number of undecided voters? And I seem to think from the release we have had of polls in the last 24 hours, NTV has released their polls at 49% for Raila Odinga and 41% for William Ruto. Then we have Ipsos at 47% for Raila Odinga and I think 41% for William Ruto. And then now Infotrak at 49% for Raila Odinga and 42% sorry, for William Ruto. And then a percentage there of 6% as undecided. And so this 14% shrink of undecided voters from 20% to 6% tells a very serious story, because in previous polls, William Ruto was leading and the number of undecided voters was much higher, which leads me methodically to conclude that there has been a huge movement of undecided voters from that undecided voters basket to Raila Odinga. And so if that pattern were to progress like that up to elections in a week's time, then the likelihood is methodically you're going to have Raila Odinga or the Raila Martha Karua ticket benefiting more from the undecided list of voters than William Ruto. The other important thing which I also need to state is with respect to the presidential election, any winning president has to get at least 24 of the 47 counties. So which means with Raila Odinga taking 6 out of the 10 regions, which if you look now in terms of the statistics from county to county, you'll see that he already has at least 24 counties, which means that were he to go to this election this coming Tuesday, then there is a likelihood that that question would already have been decided. Now, in this scenario, what do we have? If the elections pan out like what we have here, then what we are supposed to have is basically a runoff, because none of them has attained the mark. But considering now the undecided voters under the pattern it has been taking, I have absolutely no doubt that probably by Wednesday or by Tuesday, we will have crossed these figures in a situation in which Raila Odinga has the 50% plus 1, and then probably William Ruto with something like 45%. Now, it is surprising that in those strongholds that, or in William Ruto's strongholds, it is very surprising, and this is where I agree with Prof. I agree with Prof on one thing, that it is surprising that William Ruto's strongholds don't seem to give him very high percentages, because his percentages seem to be getting to about 70%, while Raila Odinga's strongholds give him something towards 80% and so on. That tells you something about how these bases are going to behave. And the only one thing I want to disagree with Prof is this, that a 42% position as at this point is not a neck-to-neck poll. That is a clear lead for Raila Odinga in my view. And if he continues to maintain that lead like this, then it's going to be a very clear lead for him in this coming election. Thank you very much.
As for my client, friend,
Thank you.
I'm waiting for some objective.
Yes.
Although the numbers are what they are.
I mean, numbers don't lie. And I think I'm not going to dwell so much on numbers. The only thing I can say about numbers is that there's still a lot to be done by the two major, political formations. 6% of undecided voters is such a significant number. It is a number that can take us to a runoff, or can give us a clear winner. But let me just dwell on the key things that I picked. One, level of confidence of 95% is fairly significant. It is basically telling us that we are closer to what we'll get in the election. And then number two is looking at the opinion polls that we've seen the whole of today, the three of them, including this one, against the backdrop of what Raila Odinga got in 2017. It does appear that in 2017 with NASA, Raila had Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula on his side, and they left Raila. So the assumption is Raila has had some votes leave his big basket, but the percentage still seems to remain the same. We may want to ask ourselves, how come he is still at 49%? Where are those votes coming from? And I think these numbers are very clear that the percentage that Raila gets in Central is a clear indication that he has at least climbed the mountain. One thing that is probably clear is the fact that if you get 20% in Migori, and I come from Migori, that's where I think in Raila's stronghold, you see Ruto has a very significant percent, and Raila is not on 80s. And you get 24% in Mount Kenya region. I think the contribution that they make in the aggregate for the entire country is fairly significant. And that seems to be what has pushed Raila to 49, despite two of his key principles moving to Kenya Kwanza. Then number two, I think from my own perspective, the other thing I didn't say is that I'm also a researcher, is that one of the key factors that probably seems to explain this, the fact that in Mount Kenya region, we've seen Raila increase a bit, but we've seen a tremendous loss by Kenya Kwanza. I know we've talked about the running mate issue, but for me, the biggest contributor seems to be the revamping, and rebranding of the Jubilee political party. At the time when the deputy president was leading in the Mount Kenya region, you realize there was a vacuum. He was pretty much the kingpin of the Mount Kenya region. So he owned almost all the developmental track record that was there in Mount Kenya region. And that changed immediately. President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee political party reasserted itself, rebranded, and had candidates in all these regions. So there was a recourse to that. What happened is that whatever development the deputy president was talking about, now the owners came on board. And I think it opened the eyes of so many people in the Mount Kenya region, and they started questioning the narrative that was there, that this government has not done anything for you. So the moment the roads were unleashed, the tea industry, the coffee industry, the incentives, and I think the likes of Honorable Peter Munya have contributed a big deal to that gain. But significantly, it's also important to note that for a long time, the deputy president concentrated on Mount Kenya region. So in as much as these numbers don't lie, there is a sense in which the 70-60% that he has in his backyard, like South Rift, North Rift, where he has 64, if he was to concentrate in pushing these numbers up, I think he'll also be in a very strong position. And if you combine that and the 6% undecided voters, you still can't call this. It is close, but you still can't call it. But then lastly, is also the question of the undecided voters in the Mount Kenya region, because I realize that the percentage is fairly significant in Mount Kenya region, 6, 7, 5. It's not like Migori, where I come from, where I think we are set. There's only 1% undecided voters. So what do they tell me? They essentially tell me that if you have 6% in Kiambu, you have 7% in Murang'a, it basically means that you're talking about a percentage of a very populous county. And chances are there is still a lot that can be gained in these Mount Kenya counties. But as they say, numbers don't lie, but I'm not so sure these numbers are indicative of who will win, but are indicative of what whoever will win has to do between now and the election. Galvanize their percentage and ensure that the 6% undecided voters goes to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Hesbon. I think different views, whether we're able to call it or not. If you have any questions, we can quickly answer them, and then you can refresh yourself with a cup of coffee. I know you'll be working almost all night since tomorrow is the last day to publish. So you have to get it out today. But if there are any questions, myself or the esteemed people who have spoken can answer them. We're going to give you a copy of the presentation to go with now. It's a media copy. We'll do the beautiful one with the maps and everything in a short while. Bear with us. We are also working round the clock. But asanteni sana. Okay? And also feel free as usual to ask your questions even as you're going. We will still be able to answer them. Okay? Yeah. Sawa. Everything you wanted answered was now answered. It was responded to. Okay. Yeah. And remember, on voting day, there's no undecided. Eh? Okay, so you want me to repeat the whole thing? You want me to just give it to you? Just for you? So the rest of the guys can take their tea. Please, take tea. I won't be seeing you again until 2020. Karibuni, nyongeza wewe kuja tuseme tutafanya wapi? Sasa mbona umechelewa wewe? Backdrop. Tuko na